All right, y'all. So, I don't know if y'all really need to see this per se. I don't know. I'm just gonna show you what I'm doing, but I'm probably just gonna be up in here talking. So let me share on this down so y'all can see. So over here is a bucket I have with a bunch of my homemade compost in it and a little bit of recycled soil. Now, since my compost piles are outside, as you can see, they have a bunch of leaves in them, leaves that haven't even begun to compost down. Now, this compost probably got leaves in it that actually are broken down, and then you have big stuff like this, which is wood chips. Over here, what you have is on top of a 5-gallon bucket, I've got my sifter, and then what you see me doing is sifting through all the fine stuff, and then you're left with all this. Now, that's still organic matter. I'm just gonna dump it in a container over here to the side. So you'll sift out all the leaves and the big stuff, and then you be left with that which is real fine. And it's beautiful to start your seeds off in, and you don't have to sit up and pick all the leaves out and stuff like I was doing before, because I'm gonna start some more seeds today. But if you're wondering where I got this sifter from, I got it on eBay, but you probably could find them on Amazon. They're for sifting, they're for panning for gold. That's what they're for. But you can sift anything, and they have different size screens in them. I have two. I have one that's a 1/4 inch, and the other one is 1/8 of an inch. But they have like 1/2 an inch. I think they have 3/4 inch, and they may even go below that 1/8 of an inch. They may go down to a 1/16. I'm not sure, but you really don't need 1/16. The screen I'm using right now is the 1/4 of an inch screen, and that's more than fine, because that's, you know, that's not gonna go through. The big 1/4 of an inch is only that big, so the stuff ain't gonna go through. Only the fine stuff will go through. And all of the other big organic matter, all the stuff that don't go through, that I'm dumping into this third container, I'm simply gonna put it back in the compost pile, and it will break down. And that's how you do that. So I guess this video is the perfect video to do right now, I guess, because I'm gonna talk about, should you make your own soils or not, or should you buy soil? I do both, but I make way more soil than I buy. And you know, I may have picked, I may have should have done all it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get through sifting this, because I ain't got much more, and then I'm gonna come back. All right, I'm back. Now, y'all don't mind me, honey. I done created something over here. Okay, that's on. Okay, child, let me show y'all. Look at that. Ain't it pretty? Bunch of weeds. Some of this is onion. Some wild onions that I collected in the neighborhood, and they started coming up. But when they started coming up, the weeds started coming up too, and I did not take the opportunity to pull out the weeds as I should have. So I'm gonna take the opportunity to do that now, to get the weeds out of here and try to leave the onions. But I'm gonna do that while I talk to y'all. So, like I said, this video is about, should you make your own soils or not. I personally do both. There's not very many cons I can think to making your own soil. Now, I can think of individuals who may not be able to do so because of space constraints. Let's see. Make sure y'all can, because y'all don't necessarily have to see what I'm doing. I'm just pulling out weeds. If you don't know how to pull out weeds, then I don't know. I'm sure there's a video for that. They have videos for how to peel oranges and all that kind of stuff. So you may want to find something like that. But I can't, like, if you don't have enough space to make your own soils, you know, I understand. You got to do what you got to do. You got to go purchase some soil. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. It's just, that's your truth. It, you know, it just is what it is. And maybe at some point you'll be to where you can make your own soil, you know. And so you could just look forward to when that time arrives. You know, that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing. I'm probably gonna end up just, see, these are the little onions. And onions are one of the few things that actually do okay being transplanted, kind of uprooted like. So I may just actually go in here and uproot a lot of these. Where's my little shovel too? I don't see it. All I see is my little thing to push my saw down with. But anyway, but what I was gonna say was, let me get on track here. But yeah, if you don't have the means to make your own soils, then you know that's okay. You just do what you can do until you can. But I would say this, for anybody who's call themselves serious about gardening, I would tell you, try your best if you can to try to make your own soil, because you really are not going to get a better bang for your buck than that. If you ask me what is my most expensive bill in the garden, it's probably soil these days, because I save a lot of seeds. I'm not gonna say you can spend money on seeds now, don't get me wrong, you can definitely spend money on seeds. But these days, since I save a lot of seeds and things like that, my biggest bill is definitely, it would have to be soil, compost, worm castings, anything that's an amendment. Anything that's an amendment, that would have to be what I would spend the most money on. So yeah, making my own soils has been one of the things that has saved me quite a bit of money. So that's one of the pros. Number two is, if you compost down your own stuff, you know where that soil is coming from, because the more variables you can take out of your garden when it comes to potential pesticides or anything like that, it's just the better off you'll be, the less chance of you getting exposed to some certain things that may not be so good to be exposed to, such as pesticides, herbicides, you know, different things. And like I tell people, I'm not this person that just, you know, I don't immediately start panicking when it comes to talking about those different things, because I know everything has to be put in context. And what I mean by that is, it takes a certain amount of exposure. Some people think when you get exposed to something one time, that's very rare with anything. Like the chances, for instance, the chances if you was to breathe in some asbestos dust, the chances one time, if you did that, if you breathed in a few asbestos particles one time, the chances of you actually getting cancer is not that high. Like, some people think if you look at asbestos that you immediately die. Like, that's not how that works. People just, you know, hyped up because it is serious. But notice what they always say. If you worked in the ship, like if you worked, that means you had chronic exposure to these things. It was not acute exposure. It was chronic exposure. Now, with chronic exposure, your likelihood of having cancer, if you was exposed to asbestos every day for so many years, yeah, your chances is a lot more than somebody that was exposed maybe once, you know, over their lifetime, or twice over their lifetime. Now, it's always exception to the rule. You still may get cancer still, but your chances, you know, are low. It's the same thing with anything else. If you get exposed to something once in your lifetime, the chances of it, you know, killing you or mutating your DNA or whatever you're worried about, it's actually fairly low. But it's the chronic exposure. And so when you think about your soils, people don't dig up their soils and do brand new soils every time they plant. So your soil is a fixture in your garden. Now, you may add to, you know, you may add to it or whatever, which most people do. And then when you add to, you may amend or whatever, but that old soil generally is still down there. So you definitely want to I like to know, you know, if I can, without, you know where my soils, you know, come from, if I can. Sometimes it's not always possible. Sometimes you low on something and you gotta buy something. So, you know, it is what it is. But making my soils has definitely saved me, because when I first started buying the soil, oh my goodness, and it just seems like you need so much when you first start, because it seems like it's like, how many bags am I gonna need, you know? You just be constantly bag after bag after bag after bag after bag of soil, and you just be like, okay, am I done getting soil now? So yeah, but I mean, I got some little bitty onions in here. So yeah, all of that stuff is good for you. So you know where your soil come from. If you're composting down your own stuff, 9 times out of 10, you're composting your own kitchen scraps and stuff. So you kind of know, you know, what's in your stuff. Now, what is the cons to making your own soil? You gotta have the time to do it, and it's not like you actively really be doing anything. It's more like you gotta have the patience, because you're not gonna start composting or whatever you choose to do, which is, maybe I should talk about that. It's more than one way to make soil. So if you got any trees on your property that you anticipate cutting down, I have not run across a tree that people say don't compost it to make soil to grow in. So it doesn't matter what variety of tree, I don't think. So if you're thinking about having some trees cut down, especially if they're big trees, I recommend that you don't allow the tree company that cuts them down, because they often will say, oh yeah, and then we'll charge you this amount of money to haul the wood off. But what they don't tell you is depending on what kind of tree it is, like for instance, if it's a hardwood tree, they charging you to haul that wood off as if they're gonna take it to the dump. They're not taking that hardwood to the dump. Hardwoods are considered barbecue wood, or firewood. So they're gonna charge you to haul it off, and then they're gonna turn around and sell it, because they're not gonna give it away. That's usually what tree companies do, in case y'all didn't know. So why would I pay you to take a resource off my property that's been here gathering mineral, because that tree has been gathering vitamins, nutrients, minerals all this time, pulling it up into the trunk, pulling it up into the canopy? Why would I allow you to take that off my property, charge me to do so, and then turn around and sell it? I'm just not gonna be that stupid of a person. I'm just really not gonna do it. And I'm gonna be honest and tell you, because I know what some people gonna say, well, everybody don't know it. Well, number one, that's why I'm telling you. Number two, you want to know how I found out? I was having some trees cut out, and when the guy quoted, he quoted me 2 prices. He said, it's the price if I leave the wood here, this is the price if I haul it out. Well, naturally, you know, I wanted to pay the cheaper price. Like, who signs up to pay more money? But I asked him, I said, when you haul it off, what you gonna do with it? And you know, he said take it to the dump. That's what he said. But then I turned around and talked to a retired tree guy, and he the one gave it a 411. He said, yeah, he gonna tell you to take it to the dirt, because if he tell you gonna sell it, you know, you gonna kind of probably feel some kind of way. And I was like, you ain't never lied. So, you know, sometimes it behooves you to open your mouth and talk to people, or find, you know, honest people who will tell you, you know, what the deal is. So I definitely paid the price for them to leave the wood here. I actually still have some of those logs, like the heartwood part. Some of that still has not broken down, so I still have places in, like back in that back corner back there, where I can go and I check on it periodically, and it's broken down, and I can just scoop it up and use it. But that's one way you can make soil. So if you just take those logs, put them somewhere. If you got a little corner somewhere, you can put them somewhere in your yard, and just let them break down. You ain't gotta do nothing. They just gonna sit back there. But like I said, they gonna take up a little space in your yard, depending on how many trees, you know, how many logs, how big the logs are, all that kind of stuff. So weigh your options when it comes to that. That's probably my most preferred method, because that's the least involved, and like I said, you ain't got to do nothing. The other method is to compost. Now it depends on how people compost. Everybody kind of composts different. If you compost the method where you have to turn your compost, that's, you know, labor intensive. You can also compost without having to turn it, or you can do vermicomposting, which I do that as well. That's with worms. I advocate for people to do a worm farm. And I want to mention this. I know some people probably gonna say, well, you know, I may forget to feed them or whatever. They don't have to be fed every day. That's number one. Number two, if you have any leaves or green matter out of your garden or any of those things, you can take that and throw it in your worm thing. They'll eat pretty much anything. They're not picky eaters at all. I have shown several different times the different stuff I put in mine. I mean, if somebody bring you a bunch of canned goods, or you got some expired food, or you know somebody that's a food hoarder and they hold on to food and stuff, don't throw them canned goods out. Feed them to your worms. Open them cans up and pour them in there. Don't matter what it is. It could be beans. It could be, you know, pour that stuff over in there. Them worms eat that stuff. The worms shred your mail. I have told people about that. A lot of people forget about that. And for those that's going to ask about the ink on the paper, most inks nowadays are soy-based inks. So you usually don't have to worry about those inks being poisonous. I mean, over 90-something% of the inks are soy-based. A lot of people say don't put magazine. I don't know why they say that. Don't put, if the paper is shiny, don't put it in. Child, put all that stuff in there. I don't discriminate. I put it all over in the compost. And the worms eat it up. You don't have to do anything. No turning, no, you know what I'm saying? None of that stuff is required. See, let me show y'all this. So this is real time. Okay, so I know I may have mentioned, but y'all know I got a big pecan tree over there. That pecan tree used to have a bunch of English ivy and all this growing on it, and it would not bear pecans. This past spring in 2023 was the first time that I ever saw that tree put blooms on the tree. Like it put out the little pollen things, and so it was, I said, it may make some pecans this year. Now, do y'all remember when I showed this tray? I think the video was calling the squirrels are squirreling, or the squirrels are digging something. They were digging in this tray, and I have found 3 pecans hidden in this greenhouse in various pots. I just dug this up. This is a pecan. So the squirrels have been hiding pecans. This is the 4th one that I found. And I just found it digging down in here. So that's what they were doing. They weren't looking for acorns. They were hiding pecans. So that tree is back to bearing. And those 4 pecans, I really want to taste them and see what they taste like. That's actually the smallest one. The other ones I found were that size. I really wish I knew what those pecans taste like, so that I know if I actually want to plant the tree or not. But I put money on those pecans are probably good. Anyway, that's another venture that I'll probably, you know, have to get into or something. But y'all, yeah, the vermicomposting though, but that's so simple. You don't need, I don't do mine fancy. I do it in a little trash can, like, you know, for those that's concerned about, oh, I have to buy some type of warrant. Child, please, I ain't gonna lie, I seen people on YouTube buying them things, and I said, and I tried to warn them and tell them, I said, you know, you don't need all that, right? Child, and but see, some people are just into gadgets and stuff. It's not that that stuff work better, they just like gadgets, which more power to you. I won't be investing in that. I'm not gonna make these people rich, because they're not doing anything for my community. So, you know, so I just took a trash can, put some holes in the bottom, and started putting food scraps in. And I think at the very beginning I bought worms, but child, you ain't got to buy no worms. You can set that on the ground or whatever, and the worms will get up in there. I don't know if y'all seen Clausen World. She saw a worm on top of her greenhouse. I wasn't shocked. I've seen worms climb. For instance, y'all ever seen somebody who ain't never cleaned their gutters out? I guarantee you, if you go up there and clean them gutters out, it's earthworms in there. The gutters on their house. And how you think they got up there, climbed up there? I don't know what propels them to do it. I don't know if the ground gets too wet, or they just, I don't know how they know to go up there, but they know. So worms will find their way into your stuff. Just make sure you put a hole in it, so that just make sure you put a hole in it so that you don't drown your worms. And then you can also do regular composting, which is just, you know, a compost pile on the ground. Now, I do that as well, but I mainly save that for all of my leaves and stuff. That's mainly where I do that kind of composting. So I will take, when I raked it, like I'm getting ready to, it ain't gonna be too much longer, I'm gonna rake the yard and rake all that stuff into one big pile, and then I just let the stuff break down. here come Chris. At least I hope that's Chris. Yeah, it's Chris. Hey, Chrissy. You finally came. I've been talking for a while and you just not showing up. You can jump up on that table. Don't you jump on nothing I'm doing right here, because this is sensitive business. So anyway, yeah, y'all. So in that compost pile that's on the ground, I don't turn mine. If I turned it, it probably would work a little faster. I do make sure it stays wet. So, you know, that's one of them things. That's just one more other thing. You got to water and make sure that water, because it will not compost if it's dry. It will just sit there. I guarantee you it won't compost. So, like I said, the easiest ways for me is if you got any logs or what have you. That's the easiest way. The worm casting, the worm bin, that's probably the second easiest way, because like I said, you do gotta feed them. Also, something you can feed your worms. Don't be afraid to put leaves in there. I feed sometimes if I don't have a lot of scraps, like when I want to finish a worm, and I'll show y'all, I'll do a video because I haven't done a video on my worm bins in a long time. But if I have a bin that's almost finished, I will let it finish down. I will let it finish down by just either shredding mail and just putting the paper on top, or I'll put pine straw on top, or I'll put leaves on top, any kind of just yard matter. And I put that at the very top so that they'll eat up the last of the food scraps, and then you'll be left with like maybe about a ½ inch to an inch of just leaves or whatever you put on top. Shredded paper, whatever. That's pretty much what you'll be left with. And then and under that will be all just pretty much worm castings. So, you know, if you forget about food scraps or whatever, if you have leaves, or if you mow your grass, you got grass clippings, you can put any of that stuff in there with them worms. They literally do not care. They will eat anything. And the third hardest way is the active composting, where you're supposed to turn it and do all that. I don't turn mine. Mine takes longer because of it, but it is what it is, because I'm not finna, I ain't got the time and energy to be doing all that turning and twisting and turning and all that. This pan is finna get used for something else. So with that said, yeah, I believe in making your own soils if you can. I think it's very, very beneficial to do so. Because as I say, you know where your soil is coming from, you know what's in your soil. You don't have to guess, you don't have to wonder and all that kind of stuff, and it saves you money. So yeah, if you're not making your own soils, I would say consider doing so. And you can start small. You could start in a 5-gallon bucket. I got a thing up there. I was collecting like all of my old brassica leaves, like all the leaves you might tear off that's damaged or yellow or whatever, and I just started putting it in there. And before, I just was putting them in there. I think I started putting them in there in the summertime, and I looked down in the bottom and I've got like 3 inches of soil in them. So, and it's not a big container, but I'm just saying that to say that, you know, that's a small but simple way that you can get started doing it without having to think it's such a daunting task, like if you don't have a ton of space or whatever. Because look at how Robbie do. Robbie makes all that soil in all of her just random containers that she have, and that's the same thing she do. Just put leaves and different stuff down in there and roll with it, you know what I'm saying? So y'all think about that, and think about making your own soils. It also helps you be a little bit more sustainable when you do that as well. You know, because I mean, what else are you doing with your kitchen scraps? I hope y'all not throwing your kitchen scraps away. Oh, another way that you can make your own soil that's also not taxing, I want to mention, is composting in place. Take your kitchen scraps and put them right down in the containers if you can. If you can kind of bear them to the side, or go look at Robbie and Gary's Easy Garden, and she show you where you can take a little pitcher from the dollar store or a little cup or just anything and put in your container, and you put the scraps in there. You cut the bottom off, you put the scraps and set it down in there, and then you put the scraps in there, and it composts down, and your plants get to uptake those nutrients right there. That's probably a super easy way. I do compost in place in some areas, so that's another easy way. And you may not think of that as making your own soil, but that stuff, it turns into soil. You know, your containers drop over time, but if you're composting in place, as it's dropping, you're constantly replenishing, so it probably won't drop as much. And I know your plants won't go without nutrition, because I know that's one of the reasons why her containers look so, like the plants in her containers look so good, because they're never without nutrition. Nutrition washes through containers really easily. So I'm gonna end that right here, because I'm sure I've been running my mouth. Ooh. So yeah, I'm gonna end this right here, and until next time, see you guys later.